So hello everyone, and thanks for your time today. I have all the UNIQLO ambassadors today to talk about the wheelchair tennis and of course about tennis. And it's great to have you all. From my left is the Roger Federer, as everyone knows, and we have Shingo Kunieda, and we have Gordon Reid to join us too. So let's have a nice. We're gonna have a nice talk. So it's gonna be fun. All right. First question. I've been talking to Roger about the wheelchair tennis, and he's learning too. Obviously, he knows Gordon, he knows Shingo well. So I'm sure you have questions to these guys, no?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I was always curious when I was watching you guys to know how big is the difference in terms of strategy, maybe, and then also in terms of movement for you guys on the different surfaces. Like in how do you say? With us, it was 20 years ago. I feel like we had experts on fast court players and slow court players, and then I feel like as the last sort of 20 years start to get start to merge, everybody can play pretty much anywhere, but you still see guys moving better on grass or using the grass courts to their advantage with the low slices and the drop shots and stuff like that. So I was just wondering if it's the same in wheelchair tennis for you guys, and what is the number 1, 2 shots you would think is the best way to use on grass or on clay for that matter, and how about movement? What's the easiest and the most difficult?
Gordon, you want to start it off?
Sure, yeah. Well, just like you, I think, Roger, I'm a big fan of the grass. I love playing with the slice backhand, and I love coming forward to the net, using drop shots, using the angles. So I find that much more effective on the grass. I think also because the ball stays lower as well on the surface, it's easier to approach the net for us, because obviously in the chair we're lower down. So we're more vulnerable to the lob, but if we're getting the approaches shooting through the court, then it's more difficult for players to use the lob against you. So for me, the grass is my favorite. I think as well, just because in Scotland most of the courts and the clubs here are artificial grass. So when I was a kid, I played a lot on that, so I was used to that. Whereas obviously when you go to some places in Europe or South America, there's more clay court, and I think players are kind of more natural in those ones.
And what about movement, Gordon?
Well, the movement is much tougher for us on grass because there's more resistance. So every time we push, it's taking more strain in your shoulders and your chest. So me and Shingo were talking earlier about how our bodies are feeling after a few weeks on the grass, and we're both struggling. Shingo told me that I must be getting older.
You're getting more buff over the grass court season.
Yeah, I had to get maybe the shirts, increase the chest size.
Get a large now, or an extra large, okay, for the hard court season coming up.
ゴードンも言ったように、やっぱり一番はその車椅子のそのワンプッシュで、そのどれだけ距離が進むかっていうところがやっぱりサーフェスによって一番違ってくると思います。で、ハードコートは想像できるようにやっぱり1回のプッシュでそのディスタンスがすごく長く取れるんですよね。それに比べてクレイ、そして芝っていうのがやっぱり一番このプッシュするには重たくなってくるんですけど、ハードで1回のプッシュで進む距離が芝だと3回4回ぐらいプッシュしないといけないっていう難しさがやっぱりありますね。プッシュの数が多ければ多いほどどうしてもテイクバックする時間が少なくなってしまったりだとか、当然体にかかる負担も大きくなってくるので、その辺は僕は結構芝で苦労している部分かなっていうふうには思いますね。
はい。国枝さんからなんかロジャーに聞きたいこととかってありますか？
やっぱりその芝でどういったプレーをするのがいいのかってちょっと迷ってる部分があんまりゴードンに聞かれたくないところもありますけどあって、やっぱりスライスを有効的に使うっていうことが一つ戦術としては必要だったと思うんですけど、それに加えて例えば、いつもよりも強打をしていくべきなのかどうか、そういったところは結構気になりますね。入れに行く例えば作っていくんじゃなくて、やっぱりその一発で仕留めることがより他のコートよりも必要になってくるんじゃないかなっていうふうには思うんですけど、どう思ってるか。
Yeah, I mean,
And Gordon, you don't have to.
and Gordon's and Gordon, we obviously have him right now. He doesn't hear anything. No, but me personally, I think if you're obviously struggling to use your defense skills more on the grass court, I think the best defense is going into offense. Now, offense obviously means taking more risk and taking into consideration more mistakes. And this becomes then a mental thing, a mental approach that you're actually okay making mistakes. In my mind, on grass, you're not allowed to second guess yourself. You have to go with your first big decision and then be very strong about it and say like, okay, this is my decision. I went with it. I made a mistake. It didn't work out. Fine. I'll try again. You just go, point for point like that, because the problem is like if you keep on flip-flopping and saying like, well, now I'm going to play safe and then I'm going to go for it, you're going to get caught in between and you're going to be more frustrated in my mind. And I think that's where you also have these mentalities of, let's say spin players, like to have long rallies. I want to make the opponent tired. But for us anyway, the grass doesn't lend itself very well to that, because it's sure you can neutralize, but you cannot now physically completely dismantle somebody on grass, because if you actually really want to play truly aggressive tennis, you actually can. And this is what Gordon mentioned. Well, you can come in. There is too many different ways to break the rhythm, come to the net. And back in the day, like 20, 30 years ago, we always said to hit a volley is better than to hit a passing shot. Now with the grass, that's changed and made it so much easier to play from the baseline. That's why we see, I saw statistics before the finals that there was only 4% of serve and volley played at Wimbledon this year, which is the lowest it's ever been, I think, the last 20 years, which just shows you can play better from the baseline. But I think for you guys in wheelchair tennis, it's probably still a little bit like back in the day. It's still better to probably play offensive tennis. It gets rewarded more, and I think if you can cut down on the rally length sometimes just to take away the rhythm of the opponent, I like that play. And that's what I've used on grass many, many times, but of course, if you have both options, you always have options, and then it depends a little bit on who you play. But I think taking sometimes a little bit extra chances and extra creativity lends itself very well for grass in my mind.
Gordon, quick question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like you just mentioned there, Roger, that the grass has changed now, and it's more maybe suited more for the baseline players. And
yeah,
do you miss that? Do you miss the old grass? And do you think that it will ever change back again? Because for me, growing up, when I watched Wimbledon on the TV, I used to love watching players like Tim Henman with the serve volley and coming forward, because that difference between the grass and the clay and the hard was, what made it entertaining.
Yes.
Do you think they'll ever change it back, or would you like to see that?
No, I mean, so I don't think it will change back, to be honest. I mean, obviously we don't know what the deal is in 100 years from now, but I cannot imagine that with this type of grass, and the grass will only get more perfect over time, because they will want to have it like this most beautiful carpet grass possible with the least bad bounces. So Wimbledon can say we have the most perfect grass court like no other club has, which I think is a beautiful way forward in many ways. But you will not be rewarded with bluff tennis, which you can say like, well, the better man wins, fine. But bluff tennis was also part of how the game is being played. You come to the net and you see what happens, and you wander in again and you see if it works again. And because it worked, the other guy also then had to come closer to you. It was a race who could be at the net first. And then I think the only way, in my mind, is if things change on grass, is if there is like a revolution in terms of how the game is being taught even at the junior level already in terms of coaching, because I'm not sure if enough transition game and enough volleys are being taught over, let's say you have 4 hours of practice a day. I wonder if you are an hour at least at the net. I would highly doubt that. And if you wanted to be back again into certain volley mode, chip and charge mode, and volley mode, in my mind, you would probably have to spend after those 4 hours at least 2.5 hours at the net. And that will not happen, as you know, it will not happen, because the coach will always argue the serve, the return, and the baseline and movement is more important than the volley. So that's why I don't have a great feeling about the future of the net game. Even though I must say more and more players are more at ease at the net. They just don't trust themselves that they can hit volleys under the net time and time again, you know. And I think getting past and getting beat at the net leaves a very sour and uncomfortable taste for a lot of the players, that they don't believe that that's the way to go. So they rather control things from the baseline. But the problem is, against the best players, you have to come to the net. You have to have that extra element of surprise. And I hope that players realize that it's super important to actually work on the transition game and on the volley game. And even in doubles, we see them not coming in anymore, which in my mind is incredible. But the way they play doubles, it's fascinating to see how they play from the back. It's amazing. Really, I think it's a great quality as well, what they've created.
Yeah. Well, you guys brought it up about the, how the tennis is changing. So my question, next one is to three of you guys, is that, we talk about how tennis is changing, but I wanted to ask about, Shingo and Roger's been on the tour for a very long time. Gordon's still like a junior compared to them, but still, you guys are playing for a very long time. Wanted to ask you, what do you think about how tennis evolved from 10 years ago, from past to now? And then what do you think about from now on, 10 years from now on, or on the future, how the tennis is going to change? I want to go ahead and ask you from Shingo.
10年前との違いっていうのは、やっぱり一番はサービスの力が、どの選手も上がってきてるなっていうのは思うところですね。10年前はもう少しブレイク合戦だとかが多かったんですけれども、今はやっぱり車椅子の選手でも、一番サーブ速い選手で160、170キロのサーブを打つ選手もいますし、ゴードンもやっぱりスピードすごく出る選手で、彼もやっぱり160ぐらいの、サービススピードを出してきますし、そういう意味ではやっぱり昔よりもそのサービスキープっていうのが計算しやすくなってきてるなっていうところは昔との違いで、あとはやっぱり昔よりもやっぱりアグレッシブなプレーが増えてきた。昔はもっとベースラインだけでプレーする選手が多かったんですけれども、今は2バウンドまで許されるってルールがあるにもかかわらず、それでもやっぱりボレーだとか、そういった前へっていう戦術が増えてきているふうに思います。この両方ともこうやって話してると思うのは、やっぱゴードン結構そこは上手だなっていうふうに思いますよね。サービスとやっぱりこのボレーのうまさっていうのは彼持ってるので、そこは本当に現代のこの車椅子テニスにすごくマッチした、プレーをしてるなっていうふうに思いますし、それに対抗して僕はどう彼の脇を抜いていくかっていう、ちょっとナダルっぽい思考が求められるのかなっていうふうには思いますね。
なるほど。今後テニスはどうなってきますかね。逆にそこからさらにここからどう進化するかと思います？
そうですね。なかなかちょっと難しいところではあるんですけど、やっぱりさらにこのサービス力っていうのはまだ上がっていくと思うし、今でもトップ選手であれば多分 80% ぐらいはワンバウンドでの処理っていうのが多くなってて、決してその2バウンドまで待ってるとやっぱ相手にね、時間を与えてしまうので、そういったところが限りなく攻撃も速くなっていくんじゃないかなっていうふうには思います。はい、
なるほど。Gordon?
Yeah, I agree with Shingo. Obviously, he's been around a little bit longer than me, so he's seen it even change more than me. But I think my first sort of big international tournament that I attended was in 2005, so 15, 16 years. And I think then, it was more passive. Players were happy to stay behind the baseline, take the ball in 2 bounces. And a lot of times the point was won just when somebody made a mistake.
Yep.
It was, we'll keep rallying until somebody breaks down. Whereas, like Shingo said, now players are much more proactive. They're trying to take the ball earlier. They're trying to be more aggressive, trying to come forward, take the opponent's time away. Also, the chairs have changed a lot. They've become lighter, and because players, the popularity of the sport has increased, and there's maybe some more money in the top of the game, in the Grand Slams. There's much more players that are playing full time. So players are stronger, they're fitter, and they train more, so make less mistakes. And like Shingo said, the serve and return are more consistent and more accurate. So, it'll be interesting to see in a few years if the technology in the wheelchairs keeps progressing and they become lighter. Maybe players will start to change the height they sit at. They might go taller to try and improve the serve. So it will be interesting to see how that changes. But yeah, I totally agree with Shingo that I think players will just keep looking to be more and more aggressive and take control of the baseline and move forward. So yeah, it will be interesting to see where it is in a few years. But for me, one of the really impressive things and this is something that Shingo and you, Roger, have in common a lot, is that no matter how the sport has changed over the years, Shingo was one of the best players in the world when I started, and he still is. So you've both adapted your games to the way the sport's progressed, and no matter how it's changed, you guys have both stayed up at the top of the game, where maybe other players struggled with that. So yeah, maybe in 5-10 years we'll still see Shingo battling away at the top of the game.
That would be nice to see, absolutely. I mean, I think the more options you have, the more you can adapt, and then the easier it is actually to potentially stay at the top. But I think you always got to have an open mind as well, and not be too, I guess, blocked as well, to say like, if something not broken, don't fix it, kind of thing. So I've always been very open to have a complete relook at my game and decide, do I have to really change a lot of things? I didn't have a lot of technical problems, so I think that helped me not become too mental on the court as well. But if you ask me now about the changes I see also coming in tennis, it's actually interesting how similar it is to Gordon and Shingo, about how I also think the game is going to get more powerful. I feel like we're seeing bigger guys. Yeah. They're taller. If you look at Novak and Murray already, and then you look at Delpo and Raonic, and I know there's always been tall players around, but I feel like they're not just taller, but the average has gotten up. Everybody's taller now than before, and they move the big guys exceptionally well. Because back in the day, when you had a tall player, it was classic for him to serve and volley at a certain height. Now all these guys, the big guys, they serve big and hit big. And I think that's only going to be more amplified, like you said, Gordon, as well. If I look now how Thiem and Rublev are all practicing, and I think that comes all from Lendl and Courier and Rafa and Muster. Everybody started hitting the ball bigger and bigger every time in practice, and they they make their mind so strong that they can, they can trust themselves then in the match as well to hit this big. I think it's quite interesting to see also how it's evolved in practice. In practice, I used to go and warm up and hit a few balls, and just like move the ball around, see, okay, do I still remember how to play tennis? Yeah, I do. And I don't want to get hurt. So I'm doing what everybody else is doing. And then that's what you do. And nowadays, I think, like you said, because of the money as well, players have bigger teams. You take better care of yourself. Traveling is getting easier than it used to, 20, 30 years ago. So I think we're also going to see bigger players hitting bigger. And then I think there's always going to be something in racket technology and string technology that's going to come, that's going to give us more topspin, more control, so we can hit harder through the ball. And I believe it's the same with the wheelchair itself. It's going to be more mobile, more faster. There's going to be always little things to adjust. I just think the rules need to comply, that it still stays an even playing field. But interesting, times ahead of us, I think. I don't see a revolution per se, and I just think players are going to get fitter and, like you said, more stronger. And because of that, they're able to keep their level of play for longer. For us, I guess it's going to be the key, how you stay injury free for a long period of time, which is going to be the challenge. But I think with sports science and stuff like this, a lot of guys will find good ways. Yeah. So it's interesting to see how many similarities we actually have. Back in the day, also, if you look back at the women's game, the men's game, if you look how Vilas and Borg had rallies, it was very much like back and forth, or Chrissy Everett also very much back and forth. And then somebody like Navratilova comes in and others who always net rushed and other players realize, oh, this also works. It only takes one person to give that idea to others, and then more and more do it, and then you have like the herd, coming in and everybody trying it, and then this is when then the game is truly changing, and we'll see that probably also moving forward.
Yeah. Great, guys. I mean, we want to keep going. This is a great chat, and we want to keep doing
fun,
but that time too. But we'll do it again for sure. I think we loved it this time, and but Roger said a good word: stay healthy.
Yes.
And then we'll keep good luck in the tournaments that it's coming up, and we'll see you guys. And thanks for your time today.
Nice to see you, Gordon. Take care, Shingo.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Nice to speak to you.
Bye-bye.